All right. So we'll get into it because I know I appreciate everybody's time. So, all right. So the Jay-Z thing. So I want to see how everybody feels about it. So I don't personally believe that he did that. I think that we're in a money grab phase right now. So I want to get everybody's opinion. What do you guys think about this thing? Because I think that some things are true, but it kind of becomes a pile on at a certain point. And I think that, obviously because it's a civil lawsuit, there's opportunity for somebody to come in and say, you know what, let's just throw the lawsuit on. We make it hot on him, and maybe we can just get a settlement. A little bit of crumbs off Jay-Z's plate could
He
be,
said that in his statement.
and
No, in his statement, he pretty much said kind of what you were alluding to. He was like, if this is a criminal thing, you should be filing criminal charges, but you're not. You're doing it civilly, which tells me this is about money. So
right,
if I'm a criminal and this act is so heinous, file criminal charges against me, which they
Right.
have not done. So to your point, and that's the point he was making, he was like that lawyer that filed the case is kind of shady, and the point he was making was almost like yours. This is a money grab because if this is a crime that I committed, there should be criminal charges against me,
right,
Absolutely.
especially a crime like this.
yeah,
So
Mhm.
why are we doing this now?
absolutely,
So yeah,
Right.
absolutely,
I can't disagree with that. I think he's right.
Mm.
yeah,
So,
yeah. It's
No
getting a little
doubt.
crazy. I think we're kind of in the world, and I'm not gonna. I want to let you guys rock. We're kind of in that world now where you get a stake on your name just from the accusation alone.
mhm.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens, with him, with Jay-Z being, kind of the ambassador of the music for the Super Bowl and stuff like that. I wonder because
They
he's
said
very
nothing. They
corporate.
said it's not happening. They're not changing anything.
Okay.
So it's not affecting that. Not right now, at least.
Okay.
So
Well, brothers, hop in. Let me know what you guys think.
Yeah, I agree with B definitely that if that accusation is accurate, then criminal charges should have been filed. If not, if the criminal charges weren't filed, then it seems unscrupulous.
Well, this supposedly happened like 20 years ago, correct? This rape
Right.
Yeah.
accusation is something from
24
20
years
years
ago.
ago. So
Yeah.
then, in the early 2000, sometime around
In
then,
in the year 2000.
in
Yeah.
2000,
In
I
the
think
year
in
then,
2000,
2000.
I think they did.
then the statute of limitations on rape has been exhausted. So they would not be able to bring criminal charges at this point. So um,
Now,
that
twin,
might.
I don't know. I could be mistaken, but I think in New York, I could be mistaken. I believe in New
Mhm.
York, the statute of limitations is not up. I'm not sure if you guys.
We
Oh,
Um,
can we can we
I
can
don't
look
know.
at
I don't
this.
know
Yeah.
about the statute. I'm not sure when the years are actually, but I know the situation with Bill Cosby. Those were criminal charges, correct? That all of these
Correct.
Yeah,
women.
mhm.
those were criminal. Yeah.
So, and that was also considered a rape as well. And those terms, in regards of years, that was even more years in this particular situation. So,
Correct.
Yeah.
Was that
I'm
also in New
guessing.
York that filed Cosby's
Well,
case?
no, some of those women actually weren't in New York. Some of those women were in California and
Yeah.
in
Right,
somewhere in
but
New
where it
York.
was prosecuted though, and where he did his time was that in on the East Coast? I
Yes,
don't
I believe
remember.
that was.
He did his time in Pennsylvania, if I'm not
Pennsylvania.
mistaken.
Yeah.
Okay,
Could be wrong, but
so I think we would need to look into really what we have to see about the statute of limitations for where the crime occurred, whatever jurisdiction the crime occurred in, because it is highly likely that after 24 years, they're either not able to bring criminal charges because the statute of limitations is up, or they don't have the evidence to prove it beyond a
Mhm.
reasonable doubt. The threshold is much lower in civil court, so that
right.
might
Uh,
be. I'm just saying that might be a reason why they haven't brought criminal charges. But
mm.
I mean, I agree though. I mean, something that heinous, I would expect a criminal charge if at all possible.
Right.
Yeah. What you
So
think, brother Ian?
so yeah, as promised, I'm trying to be the last in the circle. Because I'm reminding myself this is your show, not mine. So if I may, because you mentioned, because I know a lot of us are thinking this whole thing with Diddy, and then not too long before that, it was R. Kelly. Um, well, the one thing for certain, the way Jay Z responded was immediate, and he put it in writing. He put a statement out there immediately. He was like,
Mm-hmm.
"I'm not playing this game with y'all.
Yep.
If this is a money grab, this, that, and the other, blah, 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 I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go to court. I'd rather pay the lawyers than pay you. This is straight extortion, and I won't go for it." So that part I appreciated that type of response because it's unfortunate that we can't believe all women because we know that's not the case. We look at Jonathan Majors and so many others, right? So unfortunately, we cannot. So I don't want to dismiss, all those real crimes out there, but we just can't just blindly accept this.
Right.
But if I may, with the host's permission, expand. I know we're talking about Diddy and the Jay-Z connection. I like to look at, like, say, the problem is even with 20 years ago and her being allegedly 13 at the time. My
Mm,
issue, much like, say, the R. Kelly situation, is that a lot of times these young girls are put out there, sometimes with the hand to their back by their parents.
Right.
Mm,
Right.
And
Facts.
it's
mhm.
I was very upset, like in particular with the R. Kelly case, is that parents, in my opinion, some parents should have been prosecuted
Yeah.
because
mhm,
I recall many decades ago when it was still on VHS tape, the whole R. Kelly situation with these young girls. And that
Right.
was, you had to go buy it off of folks $10 or whatever, how much they were selling them for to
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
it. And when I saw this, I was turned off at that point, right?
Yeah.
Especially when he was urinating on the young girl.
Right.
My frustration with some of our sisters was even thereafter. All right, thank you, son. Even thereafter, that they continue to support him. And my
Yeah.
frustration with our sisters is that I said to them, I said, you can physically identify with the victims in these situations, and yet still you choose to support the man who you have actual evidence to support that he's out there being a pedophile. Why are you doing this?
Well, you know what, Ian, brother Ian, let me tap in on that too, just for a second on the Kelly thing, because me being from Chicago and
Mm-hmm.
BA still in Chicago, my sister was
Mm-hmm.
in Chicago at the time. To your point, yeah, I remember buying the VHS tape in 2002. And we were in our early 20s. We thought it was not funny, but we just didn't believe, you know what I'm saying? And to add context to it, at the time, I was, um, I mean, you don't know me from back then, but I was producer, rapper, all that, and BA was in our group. We had a group together, so we were in the studio, and so I used to, record our group, and I would record other people here and there. And at the time, when I saw the tape, strangely enough, long story short, I used to work with a woman who knew his brother, Kerry Kelly. So I ended up recording his brother, Kerry Kelly, doing a song. His brother used to rap. And when the tape came out, yeah, we all saw the tape and we're like, yeah, this is obviously R. Kelly. But for whatever reason, people didn't believe it. So his brother
They didn't
told me,
want
and I
to.
don't know if it's true,
No.
but one of the reasons why he wasn't prosecuted is that because his brother looks a lot like him. So Kerry Kelly told me that his brother paid him to say it was him. That's apparently. I don't know if it was true, but for whatever reason, he didn't get prosecuted, and we did see it, and we just didn't accept it. So to your point, yeah, I agree with you. We do have a cognitive dissonance between what we see that people do versus the music we support. You know what I'm saying? So Yeah, and I'm guilty of it too. I've listened to R. Kelly since that time. You know what I'm saying? But
Well, when I
you
say
know,
support, I didn't. My thing was, I mean, I don't think anybody here is in debate with regards to if there's a king of R&B, hands down, nobody's even a close second to R. Kelly. If there was, there could be nobody to even compete with him in the verses. You
right,
know what I mean? So that's one thing. When I say I stopped supporting him, I meant I further, new music. I wasn't gonna buy it. I wasn't going to a concert. I wasn't doing that. So I'm not throwing out the old music I already purchased. The boy is bad, right? But I'm saying I'm not gonna continue to funnel my money into his
right.
pocket knowing that this was going on. So my
No, I
problem with that
understand.
is that our community, we're not exactly consistent all the time. Where who we're if we're going to attack the issue or if it's individual based, you
Yeah, yeah,
know,
Hmm.
yeah,
So my problem is with that part. So now with regards to Jay-Z, I could only because there's no evidence to prove he is guilty of anything, and I like his response. His
right.
response was immediate. He ain't playing no game. If you standing on truth, I ain't gotta wait for sugar honey iced
Yeah,
tea. We're gonna go ahead and kick it off. You know what I'm saying?
right.
So I'm ready to, as just as you alluded to earlier, somebody said something stupid or off the cuff, whether it's on Facebook or a thread, I'm coming back firing off, and we're gonna get to have us a conversation. So,
Yes.
uh,
Yes.
Yes. This is what we do. We all say how we feel. The consensus so far, I don't believe he did it. I think it's a money grab, and I think that we have to be able to differentiate between what Ian said just now is in regards to evidence. I think with Diddy, we all suspected things. There was smoke there, and then we had some evidence when he saw him beating up Cassie. But as far as Jay Z, now I'll be honest with you, I never thought that Jay Z, because Jay Z has kind of gone his whole career. He hasn't been squeaky clean per se, but in comparison to a lot of other artists in the genre, he hasn't really had a lot of stink on him. He's kind of just been doing this thing, winning, evolving as a businessman. And this year has been such an interesting year because I think it's important to be able to differentiate the money grabs versus the real predators. And I almost don't know if anybody's safe. A lot of people are saying nobody's safe. I don't know. It
Well,
almost
you're
seems like
guilty
you
by
could throw something
association,
on
though,
anybody
too.
now.
You're guilty by
Yes.
association.
Yes.
So whoever, you choose to associate with that's in the dirt, they're going to assume that you got some dirt on you too. And I mean,
Yeah.
fair,
Hmm.
I don't know. But when you're dealing with something as serious as what Diddy has done, and you think about all the high profile friends he has, I don't think anybody that's associated with him is necessarily going to be safe. And frankly, I wasn't really surprised that allegations were brought against Jay-Z. I honestly figured it was just a matter of time. I don't think he's the first. He's not going to be the last. I think that there's going to be allegations leveled against a lot of people. And I think it's going to get real ridiculous for a while. And we as a people, we practice selective outrage. I mean, and that's just what it
Yeah.
is. We practice selective outrage, and some people, we get real mad about stuff that people are just blow your mind, and then we let shit pass that we're like, wait a minute, did anybody just hear that? Did anybody just see that? And we let it slide. So I think that
Yeah.
there's a lot more coming, and I think that we really shouldn't be shocked by whatever is going to be put out there next.
I guess
just
I
so.
totally agree.
this conversation has been brought to us by Cat Williams. I mean, let's give him a shout out.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Yes,
He
Cat
called
Let's
it.
Williams.
He
He's
called it.
been
uh, because he done told it. He done told
No,
it. He done said what
Ian,
he said.
You know what's
He spoke
crazy
on
is
it a
that
long time ago too.
it's funny. It's funny you said that. I wanted to say that a couple of minutes ago that Cat Williams said it. But you definitely hit nail on the head because he literally said this year was that, and it's funny because a couple of months ago everybody was like Jay-Z's next, Jay-Z's next, and I was just like, nah, that doesn't make sense. I said Jay-Z, nah, I don't think so. Diddy has been next to everybody. So you lay down with, like they say, you lay down with dogs, you end up with fleas, right? But where does it end? I mean,
It's not
Diddy's
going to end.
been next to everybody. You know what I'm saying?
He's not going. He's not
But
going to
that
end.
means
There's too many people with money
everybody's
involved.
a target.
Everybody's a target because there's too much money to be had. There's too much money to be
Yeah.
gained. There's too much. There's too many celebrities. And you remember the lawyer said some weeks ago that there are already several celebrities that have settled out of court just because they just want to
Yeah,
avoid any of the BS. And you see, their names have not been brought up. I'm sure that it's part of the court filing that their names be sealed. I'm sure that there's
right.
NDAs have been signed, all kind of stuff. So if these people know that they haven't done anything wrong, but they just want to avoid the headache and they have plenty of money, they'll just fine here. Let's throw some money at this problem and be done with it. So if they feel like if
Mhm.
people see that
Right.
we can get some millions out of so and so, then why not go after Lottie Dottie and everybody? You know, might as well.
Well, that's a scary proposition, though.
It
That's a
is,
scary
but
proposition for one reason. I'm not saying that Jay-Z is the black people's leader, you know what I'm saying, all that. But, you know, I'm almost like, at what point, I almost feel like anybody is anybody, nobody, no one's safe. I mean, what happens if they
Anybody
try to
can
throw
get
that at
got.
Denzel?
Here, you know what my problem is? You're correct. No one's safe, but all it takes these days is the allegation, and people are literally losing money. They're getting, get cancel culture and all that just off the allegation, not the
Yeah,
proof. We're not proving it. We're just accusing, and you can do that to
hmm
anybody.
hmm
Anybody, you can just say this person
dangerous.
did something, and
hmm
if that accusation will cause them to lose everything, that's a
hmm
problem because that still has to be
That's
proven.
very
You know what I
scary.
mean?
B Rock is exactly right. And let me show you two different approaches to the same similar issue, having different outcomes. Let's remember Kevin Hart when he was accused of certain things, the trans, this, that, and the other stuff, and Dave Chappelle's approach. Now, well, one is a fearless, I don't give a motherfucker about what you're talking about.
Yeah,
I'm a comedian, I'm saying what I say, and I'm going to give my opinion on this. And I still don't think, just like I said, even other shows after the fact, that is freaking beat juice. That shit ain't real. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So, and the other one is, backing up and on, so I think in this situation, when it comes to, if it, I even have I, with regards to Diddy, with regards to him and Cassie, I, I don't, I know he was abusive, et cetera, so on. But with regards to some of the other stuff, I think she added a little bit of other seasoning into it, whatever this, that, and the other. Because for me, if I'm seeking justice, and similar, and this is to JC's response to the accusation. If I'm seeking justice, I'm taking your ass to criminal court, and I'm
exactly.
seeking
Right.
justice. I'm not just seeking the pocket. In that situation with Cassie, when it opened and closed in one day,
Yeah.
I was like, okay, you got paid, cool, but did you want justice for the crimes that you allege that were committed against you? So for me, if I'm wrong, I want it all. I'd rather take $5 and you having to pay the penalty than take $10 and sign an NDA. I'll take half. I'll take a tenth. I
But
want to
that,
see justice to the crime
right.
that was committed, and there be a record to the point that there was a, I want, I'm going to put you through that, as opposed to just letting you skate off with it and no response, NDAs and all that. I don't talk about it, you don't talk
Right.
about it, and
Bruh,
it
but
just disappears
nah.
until the arrest happened. Nobody else was talking about it no more.
Right.
Right. She won that payday though.
Here's the thing on the Cassie thing. I think Diddy started that snowball maybe inadvertently because when he went on that interview on the Breakfast Club and said, "If anybody has something against me, file a suit. We'll settle it in 24 hours," and that's what she
Yeah.
did. And he settled it in 24 hours. So that told me right there he knew whatever she had was legit because he settled it immediately.
Yeah.
Now we were never supposed to see that tape because that was in his
Right.
possession, right? And this is just my personal opinion, but that tape didn't come out until after they raided his house, and all of a sudden a source leaked the tape. Well, who had the tape? The people who raided the house. That's your source. So
Yeah.
that and because her case was settled at that point,
Right.
she was done. She was offered to the sunset. At the time of that tape coming out, her case had already been settled, and it was done. But when they raided him, then the tape leaked. Then it came. That snowball started right there. So
Well, that's
um,
set. That's set the precedent. That's set the
yeah,
precedent for what's going on now as far as the lawsuit. Because I think at the end of the day, to Ian's point, yeah, I think that people do want justice, but I think honest, and just my opinion, I think people want that payday more than anything. At the end of the day, most I'm not against women, but most women, at the end of the day, whether it happened or didn't happen, is going to take the payday, and you could go. Well, okay, let me rephrase that. So if a woman has suffered something extremely bad at the hands of a man, yeah, she's going to want him under the jail. In a situation where it's like you're talking about celebrities and she's living that lifestyle with him of riches and not having to work or not having to do much, but she is getting legitimately abused. To me, in those situations, they want the payday. That's going to be justice versus Diddy going to jail is okay. I don't think it would have bothered like a Cassie one way or another if Diddy goes to jail, but she did want that 24-hour payday. I do believe that. So I
What
think
I
with the
feel like she may
Jay-Z
not have
thing,
even said
it's
anything until he said that on the radio. Until he said, if anybody can, got something legit, I'll settle your case in 24 hours. I think that's when she spoke up. She didn't say
I
anything
think
prior
that was
to that.
coming anyway though.
Well, yeah, it probably was, but
Honestly, I think she was going to get her money one way or the other. I think it was just a matter of time, but I think that kind of set up the whole environment that we're in now. And honestly, I'm almost not going to be surprised if anybody gets a case thrown against them now. I mean, it could be like somebody that's really revered in the community, like a Denzel or Barack Obama at some point. You know what I'm saying? Like, nothing is going to be surprising for me personally anymore
because all it
because
takes is the allegation. Ian was right
it
though.
just,
Ian is 100% right. I would prefer. I want the justice. If you did something criminal to me, it I would rather see you pay that penalty. You know what I mean? It's not about
yeah.
necessarily the bag. Now, if let's keep it a buck. If I can get both, I'll get both. But if I got to prioritize one, I probably want to see you suffer.
Oh,
Versus,
that
you know what
money,
I'm saying?
that money is always first.
Now it depends
well
on what you did, though. It depends on how heinous what you did to me was. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
and
yeah.
let's not forget, almost not to the level of the R. Kelly, because she was a little bit older, but she was still in her teen, 19 to 20. Her parents were benefiting off the luxury in her relationship during that time.
hmm
And for me, for all those of us who are on this panel who are parents, I can't see me. I can't, and I'm sure I'm not the only one on here. As a father, I'm a hands-on father, and as a hands-on father, I'm putting some hands on.
Facts.
You know what I'm talking about?
Facts.
Somebody,
Definitely.
anybody, my
Definitely.
daughter,
Please
and
say it
and
again.
and I'm trying to censor myself because I don't know what can be said or can't be said on your
Nah,
channel,
say what you gotta say, because that's how we do it.
bro. Because I would say it on my chest, but let me tell you, I'm going to apologize in advance to anybody out there because I was a Marine and I still speak fluent Marine Corps French.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say this. As a hands-on father, if you put your hands on it, if I even think
Yeah,
hands
yeah.
are being put on my child
Yeah.
or any type of situation, or if I don't feel comfortable because of an age difference and I feel, yeah, my child's a young adult, but she's a naive young adult, I'm not pimping my daughter out there
Yeah.
like that, like the parents allegedly to a certain degree did. And I'm frustrated. I'm very frustrated by that part.
No,
Very
I
frustrated
agree
with
with
that.
you.
So the whole
Yeah.
that's why I'm leaning towards the money side rather than the justice side on that situation because of all the participants who were benefiting at the time, including the parents. But as a father, like I don't, I'm he wouldn't be going to court because he wouldn't be here no more.
You know what?
He wouldn't be here no more. Ain't no more dead.
Listen. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm
There's
not.
a couple of
Listen,
people would not have been here
Yeah.
had it been
man.
You are
my
not
child.
wrong.
Had it been my child, I don't
Yeah.
Yeah.
understand. No, I don't want to go there. I'm gonna mute myself.
No, no, no. Listen, I totally agree. I don't foresee I don't care about money at that point. I feel the same way. I have one daughter, my only daughter, and I don't care about money when it comes to that. You know what I'm saying? So, but I'm not. You know what, LaFonda? I don't want you sitting there. You haven't said anything. So tell us what you think about this before we move on to the main topic. What do you feel? Did Jay-Z do it? Did he do
I
it? What do you
just,
think?
just overall, I just think, how is all of these things hidden for so many years? Like, ab- just apart from the Jay Z, the Diddy, all of these things that happened. I don't want to speak on the man of God, but I don't know if y'all know about TD Jakes. He had a
TV fakes.
TD Jakes. He had a
TV fakes. Okay.
he was on a pulpit. He was preaching, and he had like a mini
How about
stroke.
him,
Yeah, I don't. I guess he's back
Mr. Power about him?
to preaching, and they said that the reason why it happened because he was worried about the allegations and things like that. But I just want to know, like, how are these things like hidden for so many years? For nobody to like say anything, whether Jay-Z did it or not, the thing that happened with Diddy, like, how did they keep? Why did they keep it hidden? Maybe like people getting paid and things like that. But like I just think, like, how are all these things just so hidden, like right in our faces,
I
and
I can
just the
give you a
people they didn't know.
quick little Chicago answer from the speaking to the R. Kelly thing. It wasn't hidden here. We knew. This whole
Okay.
town knew. It was not. It was
Yeah.
not a secret. We knew what he was on. We knew he was hanging out at the high school. We saw. We knew people who went to the parties at the house in Olympia
Mm.
Yeah.
Field. We knew, but the world didn't want to accept it, right? Because he was still, I guess, beneficial to the world in the way where he was making so much, good music.
Yeah.
This is why, and I know I hate to harp back to the Kells thing, but since it came up earlier, this is why I never stopped playing the music because we knew if we were going to cancel him and stop playing the music, we should have did it when he married Aaliyah. That was
Mm.
we should have did it then.
Right.
We went, and that was 10 years before the little girl on the video. You know what I mean? We
You know
knew
what, P?
then, and nobody stopped it.
Let me add something right there, because I think, okay, so, and we talked about this a couple of shows ago. I think the difference now where we've evolved to from a society standpoint is that if you go back to 1994 when Kelly married Aaliyah, and even if you take it to the early 2000s or 2010s, the idea of celebrity has been changing. So I think that we
Mm.
used to look at celebrities so far away that they couldn't be touched. And I think now, the way social media has changed, celebrities are much closer to us now. They have to communicate, their lives are accessible. And I think now we've gotten to a point where we just don't, people are ready to call out celebrities for things. And obviously with social media, can put out a well, for instance, someone who puts out an allegation and puts out a suit, at that point the algorithm is caught the whole Jay-Z thing now. So whether Jay-Z did it or not, it's in the algorithm now. So it just being in the algorithm alone, it starts to massage into people's brains, and now that's all they can think about. So that's why to Ian's point earlier, that's why he had to respond. Jay-Z is known to never address people. People would talk stuff about Jay-Z. Everybody got something to say about Jay-Z forever. You know what I'm saying? And Jay-Z is he is the king of I'm too good to respond. He always been that way. You know what I'm saying? The last person he
Yeah.
responded to was Nas. You know what I'm saying? And that was surprising. So he never responds, but we live in a world now that even somebody who doesn't typically respond, man, you got to respond. The algorithm it puts so much pressure on you now that
Now, do I believe that he did it? I wouldn't put it past because of I was shocked with the whole Diddy thing. I was shocked. I was just shocked with everything. So I wouldn't put it past. Yeah. Yeah.
hmm,
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
well, to
Evidently.
V-Rock's point, everybody, we heard certain things. We heard about the R. Kelly, for example. We've heard about some things with Diddy. I haven't heard anything with regards to Jay-Z. That's the one thing I haven't heard. But and I promise it's the last time I'm gonna speak about the Kells thing. But from the time that it was known, any parent that allowed their child to be around him alone or whatever should be at least negligent in the situation and be
They should
seen
be sitting
as
right next to him.
yeah,
right.
yeah,
So my
I totally
problem
agree.
with that is that so you let a known pedophile be around your young daughter alone, and now you're complaining that your daughter was, potentially molested by him when you had this
Yeah,
information before. Only people that could say something else other to that would be people who were prior to the information. Maybe
right.
the only people, maybe Aaliyah's parents could be the only ones that can get away with that. But after
Yeah,
that, y'all can't say that no more.
Yeah.
yeah,
Y'all definitely can't say it after the videotapes came out. So y'all can't say that after that. I heard about R. Kelly chilling up at McDonald's and waiting, picking them as they was coming in
Right there in
Chicago.
Hyde Park. Yep.
Right,
yeah,
and I'm here in Jersey, so if I
right.
heard it from
Wow.
here, I know they people in that area, B Rock and everybody else from the area. I know y'all knew.
Yeah, we knew.
So
We
We
knew.
so
do.
you
Yeah,
have to be negligent and willfully ignorant
yeah.
to allow your child in those situations. So going back with this whole thing with Cassie, with Diddy, is that come on now. I mean, mom and dad chilling in the apartment that I don't. It ain't happening. I mean, I know I'm not the only man here. It ain't
No,
happening.
listen. You,
You're right.
Ian, that
I'm going to jail.
I'm glad you dwelling on that point because I do think that that is a point going forward that people have to also look at, like the parents. Where are the parents?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big part that never even gets talked about most of the time. It's like, how is it even possible?
The
You know,
fathers in particular.
the fathers in
Right.
particular.
I still to this day.
Right.
I still to this day. And let me just say this: with any of these situations, if it's my child, I may not tell y'all what's going to happen, this, that, and the other. But when it happens, y'all gonna be like, I knew it was going to happen.
He gonna crash out.
It's going to happen. you know,
Yeah.
I to this very day, and I think I may have had this conversation with you on my show back in the day. I am so angry with Tracy Martin, the father of Trayvon Martin,
Mm.
because I
Oh,
can't I can't. My son wasn't coming back to where I was at. He's in my care. This
right.
situation happens. You know, my son and this guy around here like a semi-celebrity and selling his gun and all this other type stuff.
Yeah.
It's I may not involve anybody in on my thoughts. It'll be a lone gunman type situation. But Zimmerman would have been gone, and I would have gladly stood. I'd have did life in prison, like I
Yeah.
was in
Yeah.
Yeah.
camp, camp spa, whatever. Ain't no
Yeah.
way. But I don't know how, as a parent, our biggest fear is losing our children.
Right.
I don't know as a parent how we can live through knowing somebody violated our child physically, mentally, emotionally, as a father in particular, and be okay with a couple of dollars or I can't do that.
Yeah.
I can't see how that money is satisfactory. Like somebody violated my daughter,
Yeah.
somebody
Yeah.
kicked my son. I can't see that. So that
Yeah.
for me, I look at the parents' responses, either they really were not hands on that type of parent, with their child, and they're really that disconnected, or everybody's on a money grab. I don't know which one it is, but
I think it's that. I think it's the latter. It's definitely a money grab, and I think money is a powerful thing. Unfortunately, to shut people up. I personally feel the same way. I'm
Yeah.
gonna crash out too, because at the end of the day, for my kids, if someone either killed my kid, he's not going to be able to walk around the town anymore. I don't care about money. I'm the same way. I don't care. I'll gladly do life in jail. And if someone violates my daughter, I mean, God help them, because I don't care. I don't care about money. You can't pay me. You can't pay me. It doesn't. There's no amount of money that's going to save you from the things I'm going to do. So I think that I like the fact you talked about that, because I often wonder that too, how these parents are able to just be okay,
Yeah.
because whether it's 24 years ago, if it's true, I'm seeing about it back in 2000 with Jay-Z. I'm not going to see about it 24 years later. I'd have dealt with Jay-Z during the Blueprint album. We'd have been talking way back then. We wouldn't be talking right now. So,
No later
exactly.
than
you
Blueprint
know,
2. Somewhere
no,
between
it wouldn't
Blueprint
even
and
have been a
Blueprint 2.
Blueprint two. But what I'm gonna do, I want to go on to the main subject, quote
And
unquote.
before you do, and I'm sorry.
Yes, please.
Again, this is your radio show. I'm going to say that out loud for me, not for you. 'Cause I need to shut myself up. But it is we're men. We need to get back in and take charge of our households and our communities, because
100%.
none of this stuff should be happening. It's
Yes.
if I were to get a call from, like, the only somebody responded or asked me, it says, "Well, yo, if you feel that way about Trayvon, why don't you go handle George yourself?" And I said, because if Trace the difference between is if Tracy called me and says, "Bro, I'm about to go handle this guy. I need you to just have my back." I'm going with you.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm not doing your job for you.
Right.
Because
Right.
no one got to convince me if it's my child about going to see George. George ain't
Right.
here no more. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Right.
I'm gonna see him.
100%.
I might ask you, hey, can you find me a long range something or whatever, but I'm not, no, I'm gonna see him. So that's men, we need to, people, outsiders, insiders, all those folks who violate our children in particular, whether it's racist police officers, racist members of the community, whether it's rapists and others within our community, They should all be fearful of messing with our children because we as men are there and we're standing up and standing 10 toes down and we're going to handle the business because they're not going to walk around and get away with this. Like, we got to
1,000%.
really get back in charge of our homes and communities. Going on mute.
No, listen. No, I appreciate that, Ian, because that's totally that's a very very important point, and I think that in and of itself, parents who have that mindset, because I have that mindset, I'll live and die for my kids. Um, even just getting involved in the entertainment industry, being around the entertainment industry, I always talk about that. I always say if my kids ever want to be involved on that level or get involved, we're going to be there. So I think that's very important. So I'm glad you mentioned that. Um, now, so I want to get into this healthcare situation the healthcare situation, the healthcare murder, right? So this was such an interesting thing. So when it initially happened in New York, there were so many different theories. First there was a theory that I heard a lot of different theories. One, there was a hit put on this guy, Brian Thompson, the CEO. So at first
Hmm.
that it was a hit, organized hit, paid hit. Then there was conversation. I heard something crazy, people saying that maybe he hired somebody to kill he hired somebody to kill him
To kill
himself,
himself.
which was crazy. And for me, the original theory, I thought from the very beginning, I said, this is somebody who had a beef with the healthcare system, right? So I wanted to get into that. I wanted to play a small, quick, I'm going to play a small, quick video. I wanted to talk about his manifesto. So, sorry. So this guy, his name is Luigi Mangione, if I'm saying his name correctly. 26 years old. Um, now his profile didn't match what I thought he was going to be. So this guy he doesn't come from the bottom. He comes from a very affluent family, Italian affluent family. He went to, I believe he went to the University of Pennsylvania, if I'm not mistaken, and very smart, bright young man, right? But he does this whole vigilante Robin Hood type of thing, and the reaction is interesting because I would say most of the reaction I saw is not really mad at him. A lot of people are looking at him as a hero in some cases. Now I don't condone the killing, but it does underscore the issues we have in the healthcare system, right? So I want to play his manifesto real quick.
We're going to read the manifesto in full. It is mercifully short and concise. Here is what he wrote. To the feds, I'll keep this short because I do respect what you do for our country. To save you a lengthy investigation, I state plainly that I wasn't working with anyone. This was fairly trivial, some elementary social engineering, basic CAD, a lot of patience. The spiral notebook, if present, has some straggling notes and to-do lists that illuminate the gist of it. My tech is pretty locked down because I work in engineering, so probably not much info there. I do apologize for any strife or traumas, but it had to be done. Frankly, these parasites simply had it coming. A reminder, the US has the #1 most expensive healthcare system in the world, yet we rank roughly number 42 in life expectancy. United is the largest company in the US by market cap, behind only Apple, Google, and Walmart. It has grown and grown, but has our life expectancy? No. The reality is these have simply gotten too powerful, and they continue to abuse our country for immense profit because of the American public has allowed them to get away with it. Obviously, the problem is more complex, but I do not have the space, and frankly, I do not pretend to be the most qualified person to lay out the full argument. But many have illuminated the corruption and greed, e.g. Rosenthal and more, decades ago, and the problems simply remain. It is not an issue of awareness at this point, but clearly power games at play. Evidently, I am the first to face it with such brutal honesty.
This kid, he's 26. He has a whole manifesto. He comes to New York. He makes a 3D gun and kills the CEO. So apparently he had some back issues also. So my theory initially, I'm not sure what you guys thought. My theory was that he had a relative that may have died, or somebody close to him that died that needs some procedure and was denied health care, and then he kind of crashed out and decided to come kill the guy. But he had some back issues himself, and they say whatever back issues he had um, seemed to mess with him mentally, and he felt like he was going to come kill the CEO. So the issue with the healthcare system. So I'm going to play another video in a little bit, but United Healthcare actually has some of the highest profits and some of the highest denial rates. So I wanted to get everybody's opinion on this because the healthcare system, we've been talking about the healthcare system in the US for a long time, and no one's happy with it. We pay a lot for healthcare, and we still don't have the best health in the world. So, what were you guys thinking about this when you heard about it?
I think the healthcare system has been in alignment with so many other things that are corrupt in America, especially when it's concerning Black people. Um, I think that Barack Obama's proposal to lean towards universal health care and make it readily available, like, you know, there are so many countries around the world that have free health care. Canada, Cuba, and even places in Europe as well. And I think Barack understood that. He understood that, health, a health care that is free actually shows citizens of America that there is a genuine concern. But I think that that there's never been a real concern for the African American, especially after we built the country. Once our physical labor was exploited in regards of establishing modern America, there was really no more use for us because we were primarily brought here as laborers and slaves to build the country. And so a healthcare system actually working for us. I think about my grandparents. I'm very fortunate to have spent a lot of time with my grandparents, and I always remember stories that my grandmother on my father's side used to tell me about doctors that would come by and they were part of the community. And of course, this is during segregation. So
Hmm.
the doctor, the lawyer, the shoemaker, from the highest intellectual, aristocratic Black person to the gruntle laborer, everybody knew each other. Everybody knew each other, and everybody respected each other because we had to. We had to live together. We had to figure it out.
For sure.
The integration situation kind of began to have us have another kind of notion in actually believing in this country, and I think that the healthcare system is part of that. I mean, who would want to harm somebody in a hospital? All these people take oaths. My mother's actually a nurse practitioner, so I've seen so many things. I remember my mother talking to me about like the AIDS coming from Africa. I never believed that it came from a monkey and all of this crap.
Yeah.
The ironic
Yeah.
thing was the popularity of that thing with Rock Hudson having AIDS and it becoming this thing that came from Africa. I was in Africa when that I was in Africa in 1992, and I was in Morocco in Kabila, and they hadn't even heard about the AIDS thing yet.
Hmm.
And it was like major news in America, but it was almost like, they in Africa, they were like, we never even heard of that. Then this is 1992. Um,
Interesting.
and in the section of Africa that I was in Morocco. So I think our healthcare system does exploit us. I think the food system also plays with the healthcare system because it's all about business. One of the things that I'm having uh, discussions with older people is you have any kind of condition or any kind of thing that can warrant um, a surgery, they know that that's what they want to do right away. Oh, you have a cyst in your neck. Rather than take an herbal substitute that can probably reduce the size of the cyst and maybe eventually the cyst can totally um, not be something that can kill you. Um, they just want to go in and take it out, and the
Right.
surgery, of course, costs more money, and then the surgery also ends up being more financial. It tends to be like a big deal because it brings more money to the hospital. Meanwhile, the
Sure.
patient is not really cared for.
Right.
Um,
Right.
the John Q situation, that was a real life situation where Denzel played this man who thought he was paying his insurance and all that stuff, and his son ends up having to have this very expensive surgery, and he finds out that he um, uh, doesn't have the insurance that covers this surgery. I mean, there's so
Yeah.
many of us that don't have that. You know,
Yeah.
to this day. I mean, that movie spoke volumes, and because it was a real life situation, it made us think about um, and question the healthcare system that we live in. The average person working does not have health insurance.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we have more people, as far as masses of people of color who do not have health care, and then the health care that is offered does a lot of minimal stuff. So in other words, again, let's take dentistry for instance. If you have any problems with your teeth, if you have, let's say, New Jersey Family Health Care, Aetna, which is what I have, they're more inclined to remove your tooth than to try to save it or to try, because the removal is cheaper
Right. Right.
and they get their money quicker from the health insurance
Yeah.
company for that, and the health insurance company will only pay for that. The health insurance companies do not pay for implants, of course, which look better and will
Yeah.
last longer and all that stuff. And then, so if you don't have the money to pay for the implants, you basically will get a removable denture. If you
Yeah.
lose that, which tends to happen, a lot of people lose their dentures. They put it in a tissue or something while they're eating because sometimes people don't feel comfortable with the dentures. And then you throw your tissue in the garbage and realize you've just thrown out your dentures.
It's
That
gone.
happens to a lot of people. And then when you go back
Yeah.
to the dentist, they say, "Oh, well, you lost it. You got to pay for it now. That's $1,000."
Well, but and you know what, and to that point, I mean, I think that that's one of the issues is that, with it being for profit, I think that's really the I wouldn't say it's a crossroad, but it's really the difference between the system we have and the system that we need. So that's why I think that that's why this happened. It's a good thing to look at and kind of say, why did this happen? Why did this guy crash out? He's 26. He had his whole life ahead of him. You know what I'm saying? And why is the reaction the way it is? The reaction is really not, people aren't like, oh, burn this guy, put him under the jail. The reaction is, when I read the comments on the videos regarding this murder, I mean, there are tons of things you just talked about, Khalil, that people are mentioning. 40% of bankruptcies in America are because of medical issues, you know. So most people's issues are medical issues, and then you have tons of people who are denied, and the whole way the system is structured is we need to collect as much and deny as much as we can.
When I first heard about it, I thought the same thing. Oh, it was probably somebody disgruntled member whose claim was denied, or a parent of a child who needed some kind of life saving medicine or something, and insurance wouldn't pay for it, or something like that. But from what I've read so far, he's not even a member of United Healthcare at
Interesting.
all. So
Mm.
they couldn't understand why he would even target this man. Is that what they said? I think as early as today was that any corporate, he was basically a token. He is a figure of a corporate America,
Right.
and that he just happened to, his number was up, so he happened to be the guy that got killed. But really, it could have been any tech figure or CEO, that, because he's got a problem with corporate America. Secondly, they also pointed out, and this from somebody who works. One of my really close friends works for United Healthcare,
Okay.
and the CEO that got killed, he's not even over those type of things. There's somebody else, who would be in charge of that. So now this guy, um, who's I forgot what his title is. He's high up on the chain. Now he's getting his security
I
in
bet
order,
he
because
is.
once they pointed out, like, well, really the guy that you should have killed was this guy over here, is what they were saying. So it's like he's like, uh-oh, and I also read that there are several high ranking members of other healthcare companies who have armed security that they travel with
Yeah.
anywhere they go, and things like that, and a lot of major company CEOs travel with basically like a secret service type of
Hmm.
thing, you know um
That's crazy that they're doing that though. That's
it's just it's to be perfectly honest with you, what I think about this whole thing, I think that the boy has got something like schizophrenia. That would be my first guess. He's young. He probably started manifesting symptoms a long time ago, but they were overlooked or just missed,
hmm.
because a lot of times when, especially if you're in college and you're acting crazy and drinking and kicking it and doing all this other stuff, certain strange behavior can be written off. It's just, oh, he's just a crazy college kid. He's just acting out. From just all of this together, it just seems to line up. If he's got
Well,
some sort of paranoid
let me ask you.
delusions or
That's a different angle.
crazy.
I haven't heard that about him as far as his condition. What makes you think that he may have schizophrenia or any mental issue?
Well, for one, if you're not a member of United Healthcare, right? Mangione comes from a very, very wealthy
Right.
family
Mm-hmm.
with a very long history. In what was it? Where are they from? Pennsylvania
I believe
or
it's from Pennsylvania.
Jersey?
Yeah.
Pennsylvania. They have a very, very long history, and their family has very, very deep pockets.
Right.
So it would stand to reason that they might not even have traditional healthcare. They may be self-pay, which is, not uncommon for the extremely wealthy. What do they need to go through an insurance company for when they can just pay for everything? They have their doctors on speed dial. You
That
know what
is a
I'm
that
saying?
is a good point
So,
because I heard the same thing. I heard he was. It didn't really make sense to me either because from what I hear, he was from an affluent family and apparently he was part of a surfer club in Hawaii. He spent some time in Hawaii. He was part of some surfer club and he had to stop doing that because he had some excruciating back pain for whatever reason. So
mhm,
yeah, I didn't see the dots connected with that either. But
mhm.
I mean, it could be something mental,
Because it
but
doesn't make sense. If you try to make sense of a situation like this, it's not going to make sense. You're not a member of United Healthcare, so what grudge would you possibly have with this guy? Do you even know much about this guy?
well, he had
What
his
he's in
manifesto
charge
though.
of?
He did have his
Well,
manifesto.
Right.
allow me to try to make sense of it, because I really can. It really, one, he made reference to the healthcare system and United Health being the largest one in this country as it relates to healthcare, and his view on the corporatocracy, even though he didn't use the word corporatocracy, but his view on this country's corporatocracy. But to go to on your main topic, on your question about our healthcare and everything else, as it relates to the assassination of the head of the largest healthcare insurance company. One, this country has a sick care management system. They do not
Mhm.
have a healthcare system in this country. This system here, um, it should be a universal healthcare system. Bernie Sanders has been fighting about this for decades. I only, found out that he was fighting about it when he ran back in 2015, 2016. So, and it only makes sense that we should have that. Also, what Brother Khalil mentioned, and I mentioned this on the radio show back in the day, was it's always been my position that that the FDA should be two different entities. It should not be one entity whatsoever. It should not be a Food and Drug Administration because they are both in polar opposites. Food is
Right.
supposed to be food is supposed to be your medicine, and drugs are drugs. So the problem is what's happening when they combine the two, Food and Drug Administration. A lot of the chemicals and other things that drug, like whether it's a street drug or the legal pharmaceutical drug, they want you addicted and or uh, 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 not necessarily addicted, but you find
Dependent.
yourself right dependent on these medications. So you come back, have to keep coming back to get your fix.
Yeah.
And the problem, there's been so much conversation and studies on a lot of the foods that we have, people are addicted to the chemicals that they put in those foods, which makes us having to go back to go buy it again. These things that we drinking to quench our thirst, there's certain things to make us more thirsty, so we have to buy something else, to quench our thirst again.
Right.
So, and the problem with that, when you're dealing with a corporatocracy whose main focus is profit, just the other point is you was bringing up, brother Owusu, is that the largest profit margins and things of that nature are in direct alignment with the denials of claims.
Right.
And also, to talk facts, not fiction, and numbers, there are more people, twice as many people in this country die as a result of lack of health care and a denial thereof than there are murders in this country. I'm going to repeat that for the people in the back.
Do it again.
The average number of people in this country that get murdered per year is about 20,000. The number of people who die as a result of lack of health care or denial, about 45,000.
Yeah.
So what the man was putting with the manifesto, the person who just, what he was kind of tying it all in was hitting on some of those points. And in his mind, you know, he was doing a justice to an injustice system. And would we as, not us, because some of us would have been having this conversation, but would we as a whole in this country, would we even be having this conversation about anything as it relates to the healthcare system and we should get universal health? Would we be having this conversation in mass as we are having had this incident not happened? you know,
Right.
uh, and I'm not sure if we would have.
Right.
So, so
I
there,
don't know if it would have on the scale.
right, not on this scale, So unfortunately, so then, in his opinion, and in his mind, a sacrifice needed to be made in order for the greater good. And I am not one to quickly deem somebody mentally deficient, incompetent, ill just because they took a route that was, say, non-traditional route. Because if there's a logical reason connected to it, there's a logical reason connected to it. He gave a legitimate, logical reason to what many of us deem as illogical. And a lot of us have to start asking ourselves, especially in this corporatocracy, where there's a growing number of working homeless people in this country. And the people under a lot, now he was in that category, and I hear you in that, yeah. But for those who empathize with people in in those categories, who are one paycheck away from this, that, and the other, and live, that if you feel for all of those around and what's going on, then you feel it's your duty for as a human to speak up on it. I've never, I've visited, somebody in Israel years ago, but I don't have a direct, but I feel for those people who are it's a genocide that's happening over there. And I
Yeah.
feel for our brothers and sisters in the Congo. I feel, I don't have to be there to feel the human, to feel my responsibility as a fellow human to be like, nah, that's some bullshit going on over there.
Right.
So
I mean, I feel you. I feel you on that, brother Ian. I feel you on that. However, I'm gonna disagree on the part about it being logical, and this is the reason why. Because this is somebody who had the ability and the privilege to make change just based on who he is and the resources at his disposal. If he had really done his full homework about what he was going to do, he would have realized that the person that he killed was not the person that was really in charge of all those things. There was somebody else above him, or at least equal, that had more power with regard to this issue that really probably should have been targeted. But although nobody should have been targeted, that's number one. Number two, nothing's going to change. We're having this conversation, but at the end of the day, money talks. And this is the reason why United Healthcare is the number one provider, because so many employers are switching to UHG because they are able to beat the competitors with their extremely low rates and their shitty
And
offerings.
they're
I have
and they're
UHG.
high
I have
denial.
Yeah.
United Healthcare.
Right.
And it's just been a nightmare, honestly. When I left my previous job and I had Blue Cross Blue Shield, it was great. Everything was covered. I had everything that I needed. Since going over to UHG, the premiums are high, the coverage is shitty, and it's quite frustrating. And they do live to deny. They live to deny people.
Well, you know what?
But if I had the type of privilege and resources that Mangione had, I think that I would use that in a way more constructive way than throwing my life essentially away to prove what? You've started a conversation. Yay for you. That's great. But I'm going to tell you what, people are still going to be denied because at the end of the day, money talks. And when they're there to protect their bottom line, that's exactly what they're going to do. They don't give a damn how people feel about it.
Well,
They're going to protect their
well,
bottom line. This isn't going to change
well.
anything.
Well,
Let me just for clarity, not clarity, but just for context. I just want to play this piece real quick, and then Ian, you can hop in real quick too, because we agree. I think we're all saying the same thing in that sense. So I agree. There is a logical. So what's logical to one is not logical to the other. But there's something logical in his manifesto because it doesn't match his life what he did. Right. So everybody, I would have guessed he would have been, living on his last dollar, just like Ian said, just like Khalil alleged to too, or alluded to too. Like, man, you're living on your last dollar. You're from a family who's barely making it, and your mom died, or your dad had cancer, or something. And that's
Right,
that's the mo we thought that guy would have been. I'd have bet money
right.
on that. But it makes it even a little more interesting. I'm not condoning the murder, but it makes it interesting that he comes from a background where he didn't have to actually do it. But it doesn't.
He could have
But
become a congressman or
but
something. One
well,
of his
it's not about who he
cousins
killed.
is a
It's not so
state
much.
rep or something.
See, it's not so much about who he killed. It's more about the fact that he killed someone in relation to the topic. I think that's the part that I think is more important because whether he killed the CEO or the head of billing, it really doesn't matter, honestly, in the grand scheme of the
It would
conversation.
have sparked
So
this conversation anyway.
it would have sparked a conversation anyway. He went after somebody. Now, keep in mind, the CEO, he was headed into the shareholder investor meeting in Manhattan. So he was headed in to talk
Mhm.
about what? Profits. So,
Yeah.
Exactly.
you know what I mean? So, in that
And
sense,
that conversation is not going to stop.
no,
They're going to talk
it's
about
not
their
gonna.
profits.
I don't think an action like that is going to stop anything right away because again, that's the whole conversation is that, this is a profit. Anything that's profit based is heavily lobbied. So it's extremely hard. Everybody touched on it in particular when you talked about the FDA. I mean, those are heavy, heavy. lobbyist systems, food and drug. I mean, they are hard institutions to go against. And,
Right.
you know, even though with RFK getting in there, he's supposed to, try to get in there and do some things. It's going to be an uphill battle because these people have all the money, food and drug. So I'm going to play this. This isn't anything that we don't already know, but I do want to just play this for context.
United Healthcare denies more claims than other insurers, angering patients and health systems. The bullet casings from the ammunition that killed United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson reportedly had 3 words written on them, quote, deny, defend, and depose. These words allude to the strategy that some attorneys and critics have used to describe the tactics used by health insurance companies to deny making payment on claims. And the most recent available data suggests that United Healthcare, or UHC, is perhaps the country's worst offender. When it comes to denying claims, multiple reports suggest that UHC, which is the country's largest health insurer and serves some 50 million people, is an industry leader, with a rate nearly double the industry average. A recent Senate report slammed the company for denying nursing care to patients recovering from falls and strokes on its Medicare Advantage plans. And it currently faces a class action lawsuit for its use of AI algorithms to automatically refuse payment. The insurance giant's tactics have frustrated patients and healthcare providers alike. A major protest at the company's subsidiary Optum's headquarters in Minnesota in July attracted roughly 50 demonstrators, 11 of whom were arrested. Disputes with hospital systems over UHC's claim denials have led to some deciding not to accept its insurance at all. Insurance insights firm Value Penguin told Forbes that gauging an exact number of claim denials is tricky, as there's no central repository of this data. But according to one of the firm's reports on insurance claim denial rates, UHC has the highest instance of denials out of all major providers, refusing an estimated 1/3 of claims submitted. The insurer did not respond to a comment request.
I think that is, just for context for people, it's something to really think about. So when you go back to that, they're denying 1/3 of their claims, and what's really interesting is that
That's crazy.
there isn't an actual talking about logical. There isn't logical reasons for denial. They're doing denials based on algorithms and AI. So the goal is to deny. And it's interesting now in his manifesto on the shell casings, he put something different. So there's a book called Delay, Deny, Defend that came out, I believe, in 2014 by this gentleman, Jay Feynman, a book. So apparently that was a book he wrote about how insurance companies deny claims and what you can do about it. So this guy, Luigi Magione, he put those on the bullet casing. So he must have read the book and just been inspired by it at some point. But it just goes back to look at these companies and say, okay, we are setting up the company, and we're not. Of course, there's going to be denials. Logically, they're not going to cover everything, but their goal is to deny. And I think that is something. Again, I don't condone the murder, but I do think that people are more aware now because a lot of people didn't know some of these figures. So a lot of people didn't know things that Ian just said or Khalil said. A lot of people didn't know that, oh, they're denying 1/3. What does that mean to the profit
I
line?
knew.
Right.
I knew because I know somebody who works there in
Well,
finance, and I'm a
Right.
member as well, which is horrible.
right.
It's
So,
horrible.
all right. So, looking at, all right, and I made a post and you commented on it as well. I said, we don't need the middlemen. I refer to the insurance companies as middlemen. We don't need them. All they are really is an official, overall, they are just a denial department. They are a profit and denial department. They want to profit and they want to be, and they make their profits via denials. If we had universal health care, there would be no profit motivation to deny necessary treatments and or plans and or surgeries in any of these in most cases, because a healthcare system wouldn't be profit motivated. It'd be more
Right.
about health results based. So the other thing is with regards to, I mean, we have to realize that the more you continue to add pressure to the struggling working class, and basically telling them to just eat cake, at some point they're going to start eating the rich, and what you're going to start, and as though some of us are saying this guy in the family he came from, or look at people, you know, we don't realize how much wealth a lot of other people who are never listed in Forbes have, and or the influence that they have. And we have to, there's a lot, you know, what's his name? Elon Musk is not the wealthiest guy in the world, contrary to popular belief. We have to realize that the Rockefellers and the Carnegies and a lot of folks in those families like that have long-term old money everywhere
Yep.
along around this globe, and a,
Yep.
and a large and a strong hand in the sick care management system where they help facilitate and create what we deem as medicine is only really 1/10 of the spectrum.
Right.
It's really allopathic medicine, which what we look at as the pharmaceutical medicine industry is really allopathic medicine. There's Ayurvedic, there's homeopathic, there's naturopathic, Chinese herbal. There's so many other
Right.
parts of medicine, but they were able to help get it, basically monopolize the term medicine and help
Right.
push laws by pushing money towards certain lawmakers and others to mandate that if these people cannot refer to themselves as doctors unless they go
Right.
to this type of school of thought and things of that nature. A lot of folks don't realize, for example, as a natural, the difference between an ND, a naturopathic doctor, and an MD is, well, they both go to the same medical training up until the point where it's the treatment plans. That one goes towards pharmaceutical drugs, the other one goes
Right.
towards naturopath. So, so people don't know that an ND, can actually help them. And when it comes to a lot of, I'm not going to say the pharmaceutical allopathic medicine has zero a need. We don't have zero. We have, like there is zero need. But when it comes to maybe traumatic things such as broken bones and things of that nature, yeah, they're great.
Right.
When you're talking about dealing with viruses and degenerative diseases and things of that nature, they fail miserably. They fail miserably. And I challenge anybody to name one pharmaceutical medication that has no side effects. And
Oh,
and I'll
man.
and
Yeah.
I'll and I'll,
Good luck.
I challenge anybody to
Good
come up
luck with
with,
that.
and we have to realize that our body tells us our body is trying to be like, yo, there's some toxic shit you putting up in what you doing up in here. And it's trying to tell you something, but we've been conditioned to look at these poisons that they deem as medicine, or that they define as medicine, because it's been marketed to us in that fashion. And also, there's only two countries out of 195 countries on this planet that are allowed, whose governments have allowed pharmaceutical companies and others to advertise to the public.
Yep.
And that is the United States
Yep.
and New Zealand.
Uh,
No
let me,
other
let me,
country, no
let me
other
jump in for a second.
country on this planet,
Right.
uh, no other government on these countries on this planet has allowed pharmaceutical companies to market to the people via
And
radio,
that's
television,
that's
etc.
that's such a great point, and I wanted to just touch on that point as far as pharmaceuticals. Now, I don't remember the year, but I want to say it may be mid '90s where they changed that law, because before drug companies could not advertise directly to
At all.
consumers. It was illegal, and they changed that. And again, don't quote me on the year. It might be 1996. I could be wrong. So I think that's such a great point, and I want to play devil's advocate because I think that's always good. So we talk about universal health care. Everybody talks about universal health care. I think it's a good idea. U.S. ranks 10th in the world or 10th amongst income rich countries, right? So the question is universal health care. We all believe it's possible, right? In this country, we could have it. So, two things. One, this is the argument for people who are against it, right? People say universal health care is going to take you longer to get the procedures that you need because the government is inefficient and it's not as good as private health care. So that's one argument. The other argument of that is also going to be the fact that, um, well, the other argument is going to be that when it comes to universal health care, it's just going to be a situation where um, it's going to be overran because Americans aren't healthy. So, and I say that to say that what's the responsibility of the citizen as far as us taking care of ourselves? So those are the arguments: is that Americans it's going to be too expensive, and then Americans don't take care of themselves relative to other countries. Now, you can look at those things a lot of different ways because then you got to look at the fact the food that they allow to be in the country that allows us to be in the situation that we're in. Because a lot of the foods we have here are outlawed and are not permissible in other countries. So there's a lot there. So I want to kind of go around. Everybody kind of let me know, what do you think about universal health care? Do you think it's something that's possible or it's a pipe dream?
I
And
think the
you
example is
have a
our
lot of
neighbors to the
insight,
north.
so I'm gonna let you go last.
No, I think the example is Canada. It's there. It's happened. It's been that way. So it can be done.
Right.
So in Cuba,
And
yeah. So
Cuba.
when we say whatever the argument we have against it, we can literally look to the north and say, well, there it is. You know what I mean? It's
They're
happening.
making it work.
Um,
Hmm.
so it's not so much that we can't do it. I just think as a nation, it's not it's a we don't want to. You know what I mean? We just don't. This country doesn't want it for whatever their reasons are, but it can be done. It's
You
very
think
much
it's the
possible.
citizens who don't want it, or you think that it's mainly the corporations that don't want it,
I think it's
obviously?
corporations.
I
Yeah.
think it's governmental. I think it's governmental. I think this country is built on capitalism,
Yes.
especially right after. I mean, that was the main reason for integration was capitalism.
Yeah.
The Civil War was about capitalism. The South wanted straight up free labor, and the North was saying, we can make more money off of them because we got the land, and if we give them the impression that they're actual citizens and all of this other stuff that we believe that we are, we can make more money off them uh, with the illusion of inclusion. You understand what I'm saying? So that's my viewpoint on that whole thing. Everything in this country is
And the
built on
money's in the medicine.
capitalism. Education is and yeah, and the medicine thing is, I really appreciate what Ian was talking about, just as far as the FDA being just like 1/10 of all of the things. I've learned so much from old remedies of my grandmother, old stuff that still works today, and I've shared it with my oldest children. And I mean, the Gestapo FDA, when they were pushing when they were pushing the COVID vaccine thing, um, that was scary. That was weird. That was centralized as well. The places that and also the lack of truth telling in regards of so-called vaccines that we have to give our children for school. Perfect example. We take these vaccines because we want our children to stay in school. We pay enough taxes. We live in our communities. We want our communities to give us what we pay for in taxes, and we should be able to go to a functioning public school, and therefore we should be able to go there and not feel threatened with any disease or problems. But the 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 That information has already leaked out some years ago, that a lot of the vaccines that are given to our children especially affected a lot of male children, black male children. A lot of black male children all of a sudden started getting autism. So this autism spectrum thing, is a reaction of our systems rejecting these vaccines that are quite often given to us so frequently when we're small. I mean, there's so many shots that they have to take when they're not even fully developed as children yet. And I think that's a hustle. I think that is a hustle. I think that is something. We have to trust and believe that they're giving us something to keep something else away. But as Ian said, name one drug that doesn't have an after effect that is crucial. So okay, yes, okay, so you won't get diphtheria or you won't get polio, but you'll get autism. It's a
You know what?
problem.
Just real quick, and then I'll let you chime in, Ian. That is such a great point because I was having that conversation with a buddy of mine the other day. Now for the COVID vaccine, real quickly. So my wife and I, we see the same. We're eye to eye on as far as vaccines. We didn't do vaccines. She was a little bit more hardcore about no vaccines for the kids. I was kind of like half and half. But I'm I tend to I have an open mind and I tend not to believe everything with the government because again, I do feel like the vaccine, the number of vaccines has increased dramatically from when the time we were kids in the 70s and 80s. It's increased a lot as far as what you're supposed to take. And to your point, Khalil, there are tons of vaccines that they push on our kids very early in their development. So that's something that initially my wife and I talked about. And we actually didn't do any vaccines with the kids at all. So we actually used a religious exemption um, to get into school. But point being, now I'm not saying no one should get vaccines. My advice is I do think so. Our first pediatrician, we went to someone who he wasn't totally against vaccines, but his advice was, well, look, if you're against doing them, at least spread them out. So he tries to advise people to at least spread the vaccines out rather than doing so many early. But anyway, when it comes to the COVID vaccine, that was a situation where I don't think that was a one size fits all. So I think none of us got any COVID vaccine, and I never had it. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of people I know who did get the vaccine, some of them developed it even worse. And a lot of people had to get it because I was lucky enough I wasn't in a situation where I was W-2 at the time. So a lot of people was like either get it or you fired. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I know a lot of
Right.
teachers
I
in
know a few
particular,
cats that
like
got that lost their jobs because they wouldn't do
Right.
it. So yeah.
Teachers.
you had a choice. Like, listen, you need to get
Right.
this vaccine by this date
Right.
or don't report to work anymore. You can't work anymore. So that was a
Right.
situation where I think that you don't need a one size fits all. So I think that when it comes to being logical and looking at a disease, it takes time to develop these things. And that's where I tie it all back to say that that's where the hustle comes into play because at the time, Moderna, Pfizer, Johnson and J&J, they all had their versions of the vaccine. And at the time, I'm not gonna lie to you, I was
Right.
kind of investing in some of their stocks at the time because we were all at home and everybody had a little more extra money to play with. So I was looking at their stocks, and I'll tell you, Moderna, Pfizer, all of them. There was all this speculation because they were all coming out with their versions of the vaccine, and they know that okay, we got vaccine one, we're gonna come with the booster, then we're gonna come with vaccine two, and then there's going to be COVID 2.0. So there's a lot of money anticipated in that whole movement. And I say all that to say that now, when you look at what we're talking about now with denial rates, people are sick, and there is so much. When you have a for profit system, there's so much opportunity to play games with people's lives. And again, I don't Don't condone the murder, but I understand where you might have people that get to that point.
The referral.
Call me to defend why you think this patient needs this.
That causes you to go blind. Imagine you have multiple sclerosis. Without warning, your insurance stops your medications.
No, you cannot give this drug.
So you become paralyzed. Imagine your father has cancer. His doctor orders an MRI,
No, you cannot order this imaging.
prescribes chemotherapy.
Have you considered this other less expensive option?
His insurance causes delay after delay.
No, you don't need this surgery.
He dies. An absurd process has infiltrated American healthcare. It's called prior authorization. Here's how it works. Before your doctor provides a treatment, your insurance requires them to prove it's necessary. This is often a time-consuming process that can cause dangerous delays.
I'm sorry, your cancer could be cured, but we need to wait for the insurance company to approve your chemotherapy.
That's Dr. Jane. She's barricaded by prior authorizations daily.
This is a really big issue, and it impacts every single person in this country who has insurance.
Prior authorization was actually created to save you money. Decades ago, it was used sparingly, only to make sure expensive treatments, like long hospital stays, were absolutely necessary. But now,
it's devolved into now a system where a lot of times things are really denied for no reason.
even everyday medications now require insurance approval.
Could be for medications to treat heartburn,
ADHD medication,
test strips for patients to be able to check their blood sugar,
chemotherapy,
Prozac.
When I prescribe a medication, I would say 95% of the time I have to obtain a prior authorization.
New York Times Opinion interviewed more than 50 doctors and patients. Their experiences suggest that insurance companies often weaponize this mundane process in order to control doctors and inflate their profits.
So that's just for context. So that really underscores the system for people to understand that
Right.
it's a system that is, the like I said, the insurance companies, they can really play games, and they can determine how they want this thing to flow when you need something. So it becomes real to people it becomes really real if you have something you need done personally or someone close to you, and the delay in and of itself can really cause you to either die or to get even worse. And that in and of itself, I think is something that's going to be bubbling under the
Right.
surface.
Speaking of bubbling, I've been stewing right here. I'm ready to cook a little bit.
Go
Uh,
ahead, brother.
to the other point, there's about 50 to 75 countries that have universal health care. Just for that. Now, with regards to the video you just played, to add even more context to it, usually the person or persons that the doctors have to go through to get prior authorization are not themselves doctors. I just want to make sure folks in the back understand. Your doctor who went to school forever to get their degree, their advanced doctor degree in medicine, now has to communicate with somebody that maybe has a bachelor's. And another subject could be music and art. And that person is looking for ways to deny the medical doctor their prescribed treatment plan, whatever it is. So in the name of profit. All right. So I
Yeah.
just want to put that because folks really don't understand part of that. Now, also we have to realize that as to your other question that I didn't join in the answer, I'm going to try to answer now the other question on do you think universal health care is possible, et cetera, so on, and the devil's advocate part that you played. It absolutely can happen. I know in our mindset, when we're talking about the reasons that people are giving, it's going to be an overflow, it's going to be this, that, and the other. It's a lot of that talk, a lot of those talking points are coming from the for-profit industry and trying to convince us that's the case. And the
Right.
other thing is sometimes if you pay to create a problem and then you say, hey, I had the solution,
Right. Right.
that's what the for-profit people do all the time. They help
100%.
create they help create a problem, like, hey, I got a solution.
Yeah.
These COVID
Yeah.
vaccines came quick, didn't they? These pharmaceutical companies was out there like it was the Olympic 100-meter race, and they was trying to run to be the first in line to
Yep.
cross that line with their thing. And
Yep.
just as you pointed out, a lot of times, and also to Khalil's point, he brings up the racial component. We have to realize that in medicine, and just like everything else, we have to understand in this anti-black society that we reside in, we have to realize is that our consideration, our melanated being, we aren't part of the consideration factor, just like they did with facial recognition. It wasn't a consideration. It was like, we're having problems with facial recognition when it comes to darker complected people because we weren't a consideration. So, in medicine as well, on how it affects and the side effects negatively, it's not always a consideration with the added melanin on how can that added melanin in our biological makeup does that intensify the results, the
Okay.
side effect, et cetera. So it's not a consideration. So, um, and as it relates to because we all the most recent pandemic that we are, we all know about COVID. And shout out to your wife for standing strong on the no vaccines. Tell her I said what's up on that.
For sure.
Because, you know, we fail to realize that our bodies are designed to protect itself. And there is a thing called uh, natural immunity, et cetera, so on. And one of the early stages of that comes through breastfeeding. A lot of uh, the antibodies that we receive comes from the mother and around everything that she has gone through. And she has that in her, and she's passing it through in the breast milk, and the baby's getting these antibodies, et cetera, so on.
Right.
Our bodies are very unique, and they work well as long as we give it. If we feed the body what it needs, it can cure and fight off any disease. And I wholeheartedly embrace that mindset that that's a fact, not fiction. We all heard about chemotherapy as it relates to cancer. I bet a vast majority haven't heard about soursop as it relates to cancer and its results and how it in some cases studies have been saying it's 10,000 times stronger than chemotherapy.
Now say that again. Say that one more time so people can hear
Okay.
that.
Yeah, so I know again because of this mindset in the society, I'm putting it back in the context, we've been forced to believe that medicine only comes from one realm and it comes in the form of a pill or whatever thing that the pharmacy writes out for us on a prescription and is prescribed. That we don't realize that food itself is medicine.
Well,
And
no,
we don't and
in
as it
particular,
relates to
brother.
cancer,
Yeah,
for
say that part again. I
example,
want people to understand
a,
that.
a lot of us have heard about how chemotherapy and which fails miserably has a big failure rate, but how chemotherapy as it relates to cancer is a way towards curing, and I put curing in quotes because now a cure is 5 years, without it, and all of a sudden they deem that a cure. Um, So give me my son want to give me some love. But as it relates to the same cancers, a lot of people don't realize
I thought you said soursop. I want people to hear that.
soursop, and there's been studies that show that soursop is 10,000. 1,000,000 times more effective than chemotherapy.
I wanted to interject in with that is that so the power of fear, right? So just to respond to what you said about COVID, I think one of the challenges with healthcare is that there's a level of two things. There's a level of you need to just trust the system. One, trust your doctor, trust the system, and even on that point, before I get to the second point, you made a great point about the fact that your doctor, the one who's the MD, has to deal with the person at UMC or Aetna or whoever the hell else who, I'm not going to compare degrees, but I'm just saying that person didn't go to medical school.
They don't have a medical
So
degree,
the
right?
person, you know what I'm saying? So the person who went to medical school needs to get the permission to do what they need to do from the person who didn't go to medical school. So the whole system is based on the doctor needs to prove to the non-doctor why they need to do what they need to do. So there's a lot of doctors who have it's not the doctors per se. The doctors are trained a certain way, and in a lot of cases, they want to do the procedure. They want to help you, but they got to get the okay from mommy and daddy at the insurance company to say, okay, son or daughter, you could do that. And if we don't give you the okay, then well, he or she gonna have to pay out of their pocket because we're not giving you the money to do it. And the doctor's like, shit, I can't do it. I got to get paid. Doctor got to eat too. So,
That's the point.
so,
And we don't
so,
see
so
how
that point,
flawed that is, how incredibly flawed that is. And what folks need to ask themselves and understand, if we consider how big these insurance companies are, and the fact that there are CEOs and others that's making tens of millions per year themselves, not taking into account all the other salaries of the other employees that are there.
yeah,
That's a huge cost,
Right.
part of the whole medical cost, right? And if we eliminated that part, when people try to say we can't afford universal health care, is a lie, because we eliminated all that middle cost. If we eliminated all those salaries, that's a huge drop, and also using universal health care. And these pharmaceutical companies now have to go to the government only. There's no one, we're the buyer. What happens, and this is economics 101. First year, freshman, first semester, economics 101. Supply and demand determines price.
right,
And there's
Mm-hmm.
no, so now if you only got me and I'm the only buyer, and you got these products, I got the leverage. No,
of course,
because so we look at, and we look at, for the same exact medication by the same exact pharmaceutical company, the cost of this medication, people should not have to go to Canada or other countries to get their medication,
of
because they're
course,
10 times, 100 times, 200 times, 1,000 times in some cases more expensive here than they are in other places.
right,
So I think some people are starting to awaken from the fact that we're not the greatest country in the world. And,
yeah,
if we're talking about, yeah, we're number one with military, we're number one with incarcerated persons per capita, and,
and murders, of course,
and murders, right? So we're number one in the wrong categories.
yeah.
So,
Well,
and to your other point, and I'm sorry, I'm shutting up.
no,
To
please
your
go
other
ahead,
point,
go ahead.
you mentioned, because you're the other part of the devil's advocacy part, whereas would we just, overwhelm the healthcare system because, on how we eat and obesity and things of that nature. If we're eliminating the pharmaceutical companies, we also have to uh, eliminate and or separate the FDA, so
Right,
that we could take control back of the food industry.
right,
Because again, that goes back to the other point, creating a problem and I got the solution. If I give you
100%.
these items, if I give you these foods that are going to make you sick, and then I have a magic pill that I said is going to make you better. It's that's where the sick care management comes into play,
Right.
And it's literally the
right?
Right.
same
Can I
agency doing
answer the
it.
question?
Right.
Yeah.
If I'm giving
Yeah.
you red dye number whatever that
We talked
affects
about that
your
with the Skittles.
right, right. If I'm giving you red dye whatever or these uh, all these different fake fructoses and things of that
Right.
nature. If I'm giving you all this and it's going to, and it's causing, because there's the law of cause and effect has always been in effect, right? If
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
to give you these things that's going to cause something, and the
Yeah.
effect is going to be negative, and you now saying, hey, I feel, hey, guess what? I got a pill for that.
I got a pill for it, baby. I got
And
a
you know
pill
what?
for it.
And as long as you come back and get this pill, you're gonna be good. But you don't realize that you're going back to eating that food that's
Of course.
causing that situation, and you gotta come back and knock on my door to get. Can I get that
Pill again.
script refill?
That's
Yeah.
Can
that's
I get
drug
that?
dealing.
Right.
That's drug dealing 101 right there.
I
Yeah.
need my
Right.
I need my hit
Can I
player. I need my hit. You're gonna start
can
sounding
I
like
answer that
you're
question?
gonna start sounding like Chris Rock out there. Talking about, come on, man. I just need my hit. So that's
Everybody become
exactly what's
Tunechi.
happening, and that's the cycle, the sick cycle in
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
country that's happening with food and drugs because
Yeah.
the food is not the food is, and in some cases, the food's not even food anymore because it's the
Nah.
genetically modified stuff that they got going on. So we're taking all this toxic stuff, and we're like, I don't know why I'm sick. Wait, you're
Right.
taking in toxic stuff, but you don't know why you're sick. That's like a smoker saying, "What you mean? My voice, my lungs? What you talking about? You
Right.
smoking, bro? What do you mean you don't
What
understand?
you
What do
mean?
you thought was going to happen?"
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
Twin, can I answer that question about the universal health care? Um, when you asked if we thought that we could have universal health care in this country, right? I definitely think that it's possible, but I think that it's highly improbable that it will happen because we are a profit-driven society, and with the cycle of like we said, sick care and food, the FDA, there would just be so much to dismantle that it just would not happen. There's way too much greed in this country. The way that the system is set up to make you sick, keep you sick, and keep you on these medications and all these different things. I think that could we have a universal healthcare system in this country? Absolutely. Will it ever happen? I highly doubt it because it would require too much breaking down of the established system that's been in place for so long,
Yeah.
and so many people that are making so much money would not be privy to that anymore, or their children or family members or friends or whoever coming up after them,
Yeah.
all of that would be broken down.
there's no profit and
So
cure.
exactly, there's
Exactly.
no profit
Yeah.
in the cure. So and you know what? And it's funny. This is just a quick side note. It made me think about those new HIV medicines, right? Those medicines that are to keep you undetectable, so that basically, in a sense, you're cured, but you're only cured to a certain degree. You know what I'm saying? It's like, well, hey, we give you the cure, but you have to take this cure for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a one
Yeah. Keep coming
time
back. Yeah.
and done. You got to keep coming back. So it's like they'll dangle the carrot in front of you, and then they'll just keep you coming and keep you coming and keep you
And
coming.
they've
So
also helped
it
us change the definition of cure. We have accepted we
Yeah.
have
exactly,
Yeah.
accepted
exactly.
we have accepted
Hmm.
as treatment or dormant disease as a
Right.
cure.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And
As a
as it
cure.
relates to cancer, for example, if you are cancer free for 5 years, you are deemed cured.
Right.
If it comes back, so people say, I was cured before of cancer,
And
and
it's
that was
over.
that.
Hmm.
And we say these words without really thinking about the meaning of these words. What does cure mean?
Right.
You know, and
Also,
why
Matt.
have we accepted that their medical definition of 5 years, they done changed up
Mhm.
all these things on us, and now we've accepted it.
Regardless of, like I said, whoever got knocked off, it shows that there's an issue there, and whoever needs to be hit. Like in your example with John Brown, I mean, it doesn't matter. Whatever slave owner got to get hit, it doesn't really matter. There's going to be casualties when it comes to a particular problem. So
Casualties of war.
yes, it's casualties of war. So at the end of the day, whether it's Nat Turner or any other slave rebellion, it doesn't matter who got hit in the rebellion. It's not going to remove slavery or remove whatever issue we're talking about, but it will put a spotlight on it. And I think that all of those are great points, because the question is, I think, Twin, you made a good point, because yes, it would be a lot to dismantle this system. However, the question is the system sustainable long term? Because what's changing now, and I
Well,
think
yeah.
I'm gonna let you rock.
I,
Let me just say one quick
okay.
thing and I'll let you rock. I think what's interesting about this whole conversation is that the fact we're conversating about it and other people are conversating about this. And
Yeah.
what's happening with the information is that people are becoming so much more aware of things. And I think that's what's going to change things for the future, because people are starting to say, wait a minute, when you come with that next COVID-19, I don't know if I'm sticking myself. The people who did stick themselves, I don't know if I'm doing that again. Um, People are going to start questioning how they treat themselves, possibly if they're diagnosed with something. Why? Because one of the points I wanted to make is that, and we haven't touched on this, is the fear factor. The fear
Yeah.
is what keeps people saying, you know what, shit, I really don't know. I don't want, my instinct tells me I don't want to take that shot, or I don't want to do this treatment, but shit, I don't know. These are the people who I trust on, who I believe in. So the fear is a very big factor. And look, we're all part of fear. Some of us are scarier than others, but no one of us can
I'm
sit here and
so
say, "Well, we're
glad you
totally fear."
said
Go ahead,
that.
twin.
I'm so glad you mentioned fear, because I feel like we perpetuate the fear ourselves with a lot of disinformation and a lot of conspiracy theories. There's been so much, and I'm speaking as a mother of an autistic child who's done a lot of research and, you know, gone through a lot with this. There is insufficient evidence to support that vaccines are directly tied to autism. A, there's not enough research out there, clinical research, number one. Number two, it's not new. It's been around for a long time. They just didn't have a proper name for it. When we were coming up and when our parents were coming up, people who behaved in a way that's now considered autistic, they were called retarded. They were called stupid. They were called weird. They were called something ain't right. They didn't understand those behaviors. So,
Let me say I'm gonna say something to that when you're done. Go ahead. 'Cause I was having this
so
conversation the other day.
when people start coming up with their own theories based on something they read online or a whole lot of conjecture, we perpetuate fear with these thought processes that aren't necessarily based in complete truth, I'm going to say, because we don't have all of the backup for
Well,
that.
twin. Let me say something that the reason why I want to respond to that immediately is because I had this conversation with another friend of mine. Our kids are around the same age. We were literally having this
Mm-hmm.
conversation a couple of days ago, and
Mm-hmm.
look, I think that's a good point. But I think there's nuances in that conversation. So there's a lot of people who will say vaccines cause autism. Then there's people who say, well, there's no research that concludes that. And I understand that. I think in anything, there's nuances and there's something to think about somewhere in the middle. So I think the point is that
Mm-hmm.
do vaccines definitively cause autism? Is that something agreed upon the spectrum? No. However, the question is when a child, I think Ian talked about this, and so did Brother Khalil, about the fact that it is something I think for people to kind of take a look at the vaccines, maybe spread them out, because how they affect
Sure.
children, they may not affect
Hmm.
every child the same way. So I think that
Hmm.
that conversation, I ask people to be open about it. So I don't think it's one
Right.
hard way or one
Absolutely.
one hard way the other way,
And I
but
completely agree with
but it's
that. I
but it's
don't think that.
important. It's important to
Mhm.
realize that it may affect someone in a certain way. So you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So
I completely agree with that. I think that there has to be um, there has to be some open mindedness to where you really think about all the things and not just you go hardcore one way or the
yeah.
other. And that is one that's to me that's one of the ways that you prevent a lot of the fear mongering
Well,
and say
it,
no, don't go do this because this is going to
but
But
happen
see
or
that
but
that's
it
going to
that
should
happen.
it
goes,
should be information based. I
yes.
mean it should be information based. And let me just say that Dr. Peter Glidden, Dr. George Wallach, and so many other health practitioners for a long time. There are documentaries called Vax and so many other sources of information, and in particular with boys, and in particular with melanated boys, like say the MMR vaccine in particular, on how that directly affected and or caused and or increased the chances of autism in those said individuals. There's been a lot of studies that does support that. But I don't dismiss. All right, I'm going to give you a plenty of examples talking about information and or lack thereof. That's the other part too. There's this information, but I'm going to read something off to you guys, and I want to ask you, what do you think this information that I was given was for? I was told to take 5,000 IUs of vitamin D daily, vitamin C, 500 milligrams twice daily, NAC, which is N-acetylcysteine, 750 milligrams twice daily, uh, or 600 milligrams, depending on the brand, whether it was Country Life brand or GNC. I was told to take 250 milligrams of zinc, a multivitamin each day, and I was told these are essential. And if I can tolerate, take a quercetin supplement and elderberry, and just to name a few, as well as selenium. Now, what do you think that treatment plan was for? And I'm going to give you a hint. It was for a, a subject that somebody mentioned that we were talking about briefly on the show, which was for COVID-19. I was given this in May of 2020 by a doctor friend of mine who's been in several documentary films, health documentary films from Forks Over Knives, What the Health, etc., so on. And he said, as a practicing doctor, in the early stages of COVID, when everybody was like fearful, especially when it got to the point of ventilators, because once you got on a ventilator, you wasn't coming off that shit.
Right. Right.
That he at that early stage, he said he was taking the worst of his patients, giving them that, and sending them home in less than 12 hours. He and I had to talk offline. He insisted when he couldn't talk at a certain time, he communicated me through a certain app
Hmm.
this information. He says, because you know how big pharma is, this, that, and the other, and they going after medical licenses, so and so, such and such, because ain't nobody making money for this. And the
Right.
reason why, I got this information, because I was out there as your twin knows, I was out there every single day. I'm talking about Owusu. He knows that I was out on Facebook and other social media when during this whole everybody was like, I'm cowering behind the closed doors. I was at the park. I
Yeah. So
was
what we
working out at the park. I was doing nature walks, and I was
yeah.
doing all that. And folks was like, "You're not scared?" I said, Everything I remember from elementary school told me that the trees breathe out oxygen and and we breathe it in. I don't think these trees are going to be giving me COVID. So I'm out here in the sun and all that.
Right.
Come to find out, talking about talk about information and misinformation. We were told to stay indoors and lock ourselves up, this, that, and the other. And you can fact check me on this part I'm going to mention. 80% of the people that died of COVID were vitamin D deficient. What do we get from the sun? Vitamin
Vitamin D.
D.
Vitamin D.
Did
Vitamin
anybody
D.
have did anybody have a conversation? Did anybody remember any of these health professionals on TV and other saying, "Hey, increase your take of vitamin D"?
Oh,
No,
hell
I
no.
don't
Hell no.
remember that.
No. Not at
So
all.
that
Not at all.
when one of the things that was mentioned about taking 5,000 IUs of vitamin D3 was as a result of the other things that they knew. For example, NAC, National Salt Cysteine, promotes respiratory health. So I was taking the necessary minerals and other nutrients that I was told to combat this virus, which is what it was.
Hmm.
Not, I am not the conspiracy theorist is saying COVID did not exist. I know it existed, but our way on how we responded to it was asinine in nature. I also made several posts about this, and I used the CDC's own website as a source, and I compared the countries that were took the vaccines and the countries that did not by population, et cetera, so on sizes. You will be surprised to know the larger percentage of COVID vaccines taken, they had the higher death rates. You would be
Right.
surprised to know that. And I showed the data also on CDC's own website uh,
Yeah.
that 95% of the people that took 95% of the people that died of COVID related illness had an average of 4 comorbidities. And for those who don't know, comorbidities are things in addition, such as obesity, diabetes, heart
Right.
disease, et cetera, so on.
Right.
So that's like saying what we did, and if we remember General Colin Powell, for example, he had all these other diseases going on and he got COVID and he passed away. To suggest that, like if I get a camel and I put 4 big ass people on this camel, and I say, yo, my little kid want to get on too. Let me get on. And I get my little kid and I put on the camel with him. And then the camel's back break and be like, yo, that little kid broke the camel's back. And you're going to just
Right.
dismiss all those 4 fat people sitting up there? That's what essentially what we're doing. There's a difference between dying from COVID and dying with COVID.
Well, you know
So
what?
and there was a financial benefit for hospitals, sadly, that if they said this person had COVID and died from COVID, there was a certain monies that they were given. That's also a known fact from the government because
Mhm.
yeah, you had to deal with this. You had
Right.
to deal with this. So if it's now you're going to give me a financial incentive to call this a COVID related death. What is a
Yeah.
for profit hospital going to do?
Right.
If you tell me, Ian, if you say, yo, those are Nike sneakers, even though you got it from Walmart or the bottom or what you call it, if you say they're Nike, I'm gonna give you some money. I'm gonna be like, yo, them shits is Nike.
I want to make sure I say condolences to Brian Thompson's family. No one wants him to die, and he
Correct.
is a person that has a family. So there's no.
Correct.
I want to just make that clear. Um, so it's not about condoning, like we said. He has a family. Rest in peace to him and his and condolences to his family. The
And
issue,
condolences to
though,
those 45,000 other
his
families as well every year.
100%, 100%, brother. And his death, Brian Thompson's death, is, I won't call it a sacrifice, but his death won't go in vain. I think his death is something for people to look at for the issue of the larger issue. So everybody's life is equal, and I'm not taking nothing away from his life or the 45,000 who die every year, but it is something for us to for people to look at and say, you know what, this is a real issue, and
Spark the
we
spark
have
the
to we
dialogue
have
about
to
it.
get to some point to move forward with
Yeah.
it. But But I'm gonna wrap this because I know this is we can always come back to this, but I just appreciate everybody's time. You know what I'm saying? So,
No doubt.
um, anybody want to plug anything before we go?
Oh yeah, I got a plug.
Please.
Seymour's Truck.
Yeah. Oh, brother. Yes.
SEYMOURS Truck. You can find me on Instagram. You can find it Seymour'sTruck.com. Have an outstanding menu from lobster roll, crab cake, various cheesesteaks, various tacos, various.
And you're in Jersey.
I'm in Jersey. Uh,
Man,
yes.
I
So,
might have to get on a plane.
Right.
well, look,
Sounds good.
I'm gonna tell you my signature dish is my lobster roll, and those who have considered themselves lobster roll snobs have said that was the best lobster roll they've ever had. I also make a
Nice.
brisket. It's a barbecue brisket which I cook for 8 hours, and my brisket snob
You
say,
gotta come on down here. You gotta come on down to San
"Hey,
Antonio
I'm
now,
ready. I'm
because
ready. Right.
brisket is
I already
I feel
know.
like
I already know.
you should be shipping these things, bro. Like,
I said, be shipping
like
them.
brisket is huge
I
here.
hear you,
Huge,
and I'm telling
huge, huge.
you that you know it's. And I also it's a food truck. I have it stationary at a location in Madison, New Jersey, and I have a tent, a pop up. I have a tent that's temperature controlled, so I have heaters inside that tent specifically so that those who want to have the eat out thing, they can still come on eat out, get inside that nice kid tent, all nice and cozy, and it has lights and everything, and you can still eat out and have a nice adventure right next to my truck. And so
Wonderful.
it's an and it's black owned and it's veteran owned.